So, in the matter of usefulness and poetry, I was chatting to a friend yesterday, I think it was, and I had shared just a few lines from Robert Frost's famous poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, is it called? And she didn't know the author, she didn't know where it was from, and as I told her, I said that I only know the two most famous poems by Robert Frost, that one and The Road Less Travelled. I know a few lines off by heart, and I said that they were both very useful poems, and I meditated upon my use of the word useful there because, of course, it's not something that you would normally connect to a poem. But I actually do use poems, and I have done really ever since I discovered them. I find them useful for referencing a certain type of feeling, and so I enjoy poetry. One of the reasons that I love the authorized version is because of the beautiful poetry. Although, of course, the Bible is poetry at a different level. It's also truth. It's not because poetry can be used as it was when I had a discussion with the pastor in the Pentecostal church who told me that my literal understandings of the Bible were wrong and that the Bible was really a poetry book and could not be assumed to be literal in any sense. But poetry is powerful stuff, and the way that we use our words is important. So I thought I'd just mention a few poems that I use periodically in my life to understand the world, to gain a deeper understanding, or to replicate a feeling somehow, I think. So there are the famous Robert Frost poems, which are used for different purposes. And again, I don't know the whole poem. I wouldn't read the whole poem. It only takes a few lines to get that feeling, but it's still valuable. And another one is a poem by Emily Dickinson that I use. It's called "What In Is This?" and it's quite short, so I'll read it. What inn is this, where for the night peculiar traveller comes? Who is the landlord? Where the maids? Behold, what curious rooms! No ruddy fires upon the hearth, no brimming tankards flow. Necromancer, landlord, who are these below? I've always enjoyed that poem. It just has that. It perfectly captures a sense of not belonging, I think, which and of course the spiritual realm. We've walked into strange territories. Necromancer as well, such an important word. People think that necromancy is, a dying thing, but there's plenty of it around. Worship of the dead, or using the dead to divine future events. I know several people who refer to Hades, or refer to the dead, to gain deeper understanding of the world. Another one that I sometimes refer to is Dylan Thomas in My Craft or Sullen Art. I loved that from the moment I read it. In my craft or sullen art, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed, with all their griefs in their arms, I labour by singing light, not for ambition or bread, or the strut and trade of charms on the ivory stages, but for the common wages of their most secret art. It's a beautiful poem, and I've just read the first half of it, and that there's a feeling that I love connected to that poem. The feeling of sort of solitude and the workings of the mind. I strongly identified with that one. In my craft or sullen art. Beautifully put. And also by Dylan Thomas, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, drives my green age that blasts the roots of trees, is my destroyer. And I am dumb to tell the crooked rose my youth is bent by the same wintry fever. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. What is that force? That's the earth force, isn't it? The Gaia force, I suppose people would call it. We know that it's the love of God that drives everything, the power and the majesty of God. But again, it's a beautiful image. Another poem that I use as a reference point, I've made a list here, is the love song of Alfred Prufrock by Eliot. And I like the line, I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. That's a useful line as well, I suppose, about aging and my view of the world, our view of the world as it changes through our lives. I heard Eliot's quartets read. I don't know who it was. A friend of mine had an LP and he'd put it on. It's the first time I'd heard poetry read properly. So it was read, in a dramatic tone by somebody who understood it. I don't know whether it was read by the poet himself. And it mesmerized me. I found it so powerful to hear that LP. And I've loved Eliot ever since. I actually went to visit his burial place because it was near where a friend of mine used to live, a friend who's now passed on. Down, down, down in old Somerset. Beautiful part of the world. Garlic and sapphires in the mud clot the bedded axle tree. The trilling wire in the blood sings below inveterate scars. Appeasing long forgotten wars, the dance along the artery, the circulation of the lymph, are figured in the drift of stars. Ascend to summer in the tree. We move above the moving tree, in light upon the figured leaf, and here, upon the sodden floor below, the boarhound and the boar pursue their pattern as before, but reconciled among the stars. I like the connection with the natural world, these philosophical and spiritual feelings expressed in nature. Um, and then Eliot's reference to time in Burnt Norton, time present and time past, are both perhaps time future, present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction remaining a perpetual possibility. Only in a world of speculation what might have been and what has been point to one end which is always present. They're such beautiful poems, and time is another very important aspect of our relationship with the world. It seems to me that Eliot had understanding. What do I know? Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. I believe in a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. So I do, I see poems as actually being useful. And I use them to evoke certain feelings in my life, or to understand the world. I don't revere the poets, or bow before them. I don't really care of what they've written beyond the few lines that have remained in my memory, but I go back again and again to certain poems because they can trigger that kind of feeling. So that's why I called the two Robert Frost poems useful. Actually, there's a beautiful lecture on YouTube about the interpretation of The Road Less Travelled, which I would recommend people look for. It's a university lecture filmed in, I think it's from about 1990, and the teacher is speaking about the poet in his life and analyzing the poem carefully, and it turns out it means something quite different to what most people assume, what it is popularly used to represent. And it's a very interesting story. I'm sure people can find that. So that's my relationship with poetry. And of course, the Bible is replete with just so much. And sometimes I can remember short passages, and they strengthen me in my walk and seem to lend understanding to different conditions and situations. Such is the nature of language and words. God bless this morning.